Waterfall is basically the traditional way of doing things. Mostly like traditional companies do. And not many companies are actually doing waterfall these days. But waterfall is more of like a linear sequential approach to project management.
You can reduce management overhead too. Then let's discuss some core principles also. So one of the core principles is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Then second one is working software over comprehensive documentation.
Active customer engagement throughout the project, and maybe challenging for larger teams or complex projects because you don't get that every time.
Right. So Ramesh, another approach is the iterative methodology, which is very similar to Agile, but with longer development cycles and less emphasis on specific Agile practices.
Have a big leap. So it's a gradual leap that way. And then projects requiring a balance of structure and flexibility can also employ hybrid approaches.
Yeah. So basically, the beauty of this hybrid approach is, Ramesh, that we might use waterfall for initial planning and designing phases, and then we can transition to Agile for development and testing faster.
Welcome everyone to another edition of Tech Samvad. I'm Pramesh and joining me today is my co-host Shalin. Did you know that 63% of companies using traditional project management methods fail to deliver projects on time and within budget? Now imagine a world where your project consistently succeed, adapt to change effortlessly, and deliver value faster than ever before. So today we are going to explore the project management approaches that can turn that imagination into reality. So today we are diving deep into the world of project management methodologies.
That's right, Ramesh. So today we will be exploring some of the most popular approaches used in industries nowadays. So we will start from waterfall, agile, iterative, and hybrid methodologies. Let's start discussing. Let's start with waterfall first.
Yeah, so waterfall is basically the traditional way of doing things. Mostly like traditional companies do. Not many companies are actually doing waterfall these days. But waterfall is more of like a linear sequential approach to project management. So it follows a very rigid structure where each phase of the project is completed before moving to the next. So typically like phases include requirement gathering, design implementation, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So all that part is same, but it is basically sequential. And key characteristics are like linear and sequential progress, then clearly defined phases, emphasis on documentation, and rigid structure with limited flexibility. So if we talk about phases, it's like the phases are pretty much same like in all. I don't think there's much difference because we have requirement gathering, then design, implementation, testing, deployment, and maintenance. But all these are very sequential part of it. And if we talk about advantages and disadvantages, the advantages are basically like we have clear milestones and well-defined scope. We have a structured planning and predictability that way. We have very comprehensive documentation because documentation is a very important deliverable. And then formal sign-off processes at each stage. Now, talking about the disadvantages, basically it's so like inflexible to handle changes. Like there is very limited client involvement during deployment. And then the late error detection is a problem. And risk of technology obsolescence in long projects, that is like definitely there. And if we talk about what it is best suited for, then we can say that projects with well-defined and stable requirements can go for waterfall. Then if we talk about industries with strict regulatory compliance, they can go for that. And then large-scale construction or manufacturing projects where the phases are very pretty much defined and changes are not that much affected, they can also go for that.
Yeah, that's right, Pramesh. So waterfall is known for its predictability and very clear documentation. And it works very well for projects with well-defined requirements and fixed scope. So it can be inflexible when it comes to changes. So that's why we need a fixed scope here. So and if there is changes, then the product is only delivered at the what we started with, what kind of scope we started with, right? Another issue is, which you already highlighted, that product, what we are going to see or delivered at the end of the project cycle.
Yes, that's the biggest disadvantage. So on the other hand, Shalin, like Agile is an iterative and flexible approach, right? That
Hmm.
emphasizes collaboration, adaptability, and continuous improvement that way, right? So it divides the project into small increments called sprints and focuses on delivering working software or product at the end of each sprint. So can you actually explain a little bit more on this?
Yeah, sure. So Agile promotes continuous feedback and the ability to respond to challenging or changing requirements. So it is particularly useful when working on projects in rapidly changing environment, or when, or sometimes what happens, right, when customer requirements are likely to evolve. We face all these challenges a lot, right? So the core principle of Agile includes valuing individuals and interactions and working software and customer collaboration and responding to the changes. The flexibility is there. So let's discuss some key characteristics of Agile model. So and one of the characteristic is iterative development or cycle, which we call sprint. Then your frequent delivery of working product in incremental way. Then your opportunity for continuous feedback and adaptation. And then last characteristic I will highlight is self-organizing teams. Right? So you can reduce management overhead too. Then let's discuss some core principles also. So one of the core principles is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Then second one is working software over comprehensive documentation. Then third is customer collaboration over contract negotiations. And then fourth one is you're responding to change over following a plan. Then on advantages, some of the advantages I want to highlight here is first is flexibility to accommodate changes. Second is faster time to market. I mean, you can release initial version of your product also, right? Then third one is continuous customer feedback and involvement. And then fourth one is your improved team collaboration and communication. Then in disadvantages, I mean, potential for scope creep, and then less predictable final outcomes. And then requirements, I mean, it requires active customer engagement throughout, right? Because it's
That is
very
true.
agile. Then fourth one is maybe it can be very challenging and difficult for larger and complex projects, right?
That is true.
And let's see for what kind of project is the best suited, right? So it is it is good for software development project,
Hmm.
project with evolving requirement, then innovative product development. So product development, Agile is best suited actually. And then startups and fast-paced industries, for those kind of work environment, Agile is suited.
That is true. So while Agile offers like a lot of flexibility and faster time to market,
Hmm.
it can also lead to potential scope creep and less predictable final outcomes, right? So like it requires active customer engagement throughout the project and maybe challenging for larger teams or complex projects because you don't get that every time.
Right. So, Pramesh, another approach is the iterative methodology, which is very similar to Agile, but with longer development cycles and less emphasis on specific Agile practices. So, it involves repeated cycles of development and incremental improvement with each iteration. This approach is suitable for medium to large scale projects and those requiring frequent stakeholder or customer client feedback, right? So the iterative approach is similar to Agile. The basic principle is like Agile, but with longer development cycle and less emphasis on specific Agile practices. So let's discuss quickly about some key characteristics. So one is the repeated cycle of development. Second is incremental improvement with each iteration. Then third is flexibility to incorporate changes between iterations also. So, and some of the advantages for iterative approach is, see, we can divide and conquer a complex project. So, approaches divide and conquer, have separate teams, right? And adaptability for changing requirements. If your requirement is getting changed frequently, then your team will be flexible to handle it. And one of the best advantages is parallelism in development of different features. Like I mentioned in the beginning, right? Divide and conquer. So you can have a parallel team setup and you can build your different features together. Some of the disadvantages are like the potential for unclear overall project vision. Sometimes it becomes chaotic. And then risk of accumulating technical debt. Then another disadvantage is may have overhead of small projects, right? So that's a challenge. But this approach is very good for medium to large scale projects and project requiring frequent stakeholder feedback. This approach is suitable. And the development of complex system with interconnected components, and this approach is also very good.
So I think this is like there, but the next one, which is pretty popular, is also like is the hybrid methodologies, right? Which combine elements of waterfall, agile, to leverage the strengths of both. So it balances that management that way and has a structured planning with iterative execution and allows for flexible adaptation based on project phases. So if we talk about key characteristics of this, so it combines structured planning with iterative execution. Then it is very flexible in its adaptation of methodologies based on the project phases where it is occurring, and of course like the it balances like predictability and adaptability that way. So examples of hybrid approach, if we talk about, use waterfall for initial planning and then design phases which are there, transition to agile for development and testing phases, and employ waterfall style documentation and reporting throughout. So that way, like you get the best of the both worlds. Now, advantages, if we talk about like the flexibility to adapt to project specific needs is there. Then it combines benefits of structure and agility, and it can also accommodate both predictability and unpredictability project elements that way. But of course, like as anything, like it has many disadvantages also. So if we talk about that, like it requires very careful planning to integrate different methodologies together. Maybe confusing for team members used to a single approach. And there is a potential for conflicting practices if not well managed that way, right? And then if we talk about what is it best suited for? Well, it is best suited for complex projects with both stable and evolving components. Then it is suited for organization organizations which are transitioning from waterfall to agile. So they don't have a big leap. So it's a gradual leap that way. And then projects requiring a balance of structure and flexibility can also employ hybrid approaches.
Yeah. So basically, the beauty of this hybrid approach is, Ramesh, that we might use waterfall for initial planning and designing phases, and then we can transition to agile for development and testing aspect. And it offers the flexibility to adapt to project specific needs and can accommodate both predictable and unpredictable project elements. So, however, it requires it requires a lot of thorough planning to integrate different methodologies effectively. So, we need to be very cautious here. So, Pramesh, one more thing. So, we discussed about this waterfall, agile, iterative, and hybrid. So, are there any other approaches which can be used beside
Yeah,
these?
there are a lot of other approaches also, not very frequently used. Like we have Prince 2, which is projects in controlled environment. So projects is the Prince 2 is like a very process-based method for effective project management. It is widely used in the UK actually by UK government and private sector, but it has like also gained popularity internationally, but it's not like that diverse. Basically, it divides projects into manageable stages, focuses on business justification, defines roles and responsibilities clearly, and emphasizes on product based planning. And then there is extreme programming also. While primarily used in software development, extreme programming has influenced like project management in other fields also. So it emphasizes customer satisfaction, promotes frequent releases and short development cycles, utilizes pair programming for code development, and encourages simple design and refactoring. Definitely, then there is Crystal also. Crystal is a family of agile methodologies that can be tailored to different team sizes and project critically. Like it focuses on people, interaction, community, skills, talents, and communication. So it basically allows adaptation based on project size and criticality, right? So that way, like it is there. And then we have the, again, then there is that DSDM, the Dynamic Systems Development Method. So, which is like again a agile project delivery framework that focuses on the full project life cycle. Like if you talk about it like a little bit more, it emphasizes business value and the frequent delivery basically. So using time boxing to ensure timely delivery, and it promotes collaboration and prioritization of requirements that way.
Yeah, and Pramesh, there is one more which is called feature driven development (FDD).
Yes.
So it's also very popular, basically, specifically in product development world. So FDD is a iterative and incremental software development process, but its principles can be applied to other types of projects. Like in product development, it's very popular. So its features, I mean, if we talk about key features, then it emphasizes on developing feature by feature, then uses very short iterations, like typically 2 weeks, but there is flexibility. You can decide your iteration depending on what you need. And it focuses on design and building phases. Then there is another one from Asia, which is adaptive project framework, which we call
Oh, yeah.
APF, right? So the APF is also it is designed for projects with unclear goals or solution. So it is for chaotic situation basically. And key features are emphasizes on client-driven adaptive planning, incorporate continuous learning and adaptation, and focuses on managing project scope. And then there is another one which is called event change management, ECM we call it. So ECM is focused on identifying and managing events and events chains that affect project schedules basically. And their key features are analyzes uncertainties and their potential impact on the project schedule. Uses probabilistic movement of risk to calculate the probability of achieving project's objective.
Yeah. So it's important to note that the choice between these methodologies depends on various factors such as project requirements, team structure, organizational culture, and the level of predictability and adaptability needed, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Pramesh. And many organizations are now adopting a situational approach. And they select the most appropriate methodology or combination of methodologies based on their specific needs of the project. Right? It is responsible.
So to summarize, Waterfall is best suited for well-defined projects, Agile for evolving projects, Iterative for complex projects requiring frequent feedbacks, and Hybrid for projects with a mix of stable and evolving components, right?
Yeah, it's very crucial for project managers and teams to understand the strengths and limitation of each methodology, right? And then make themselves informed decision based on the project what they are working on, right? So continuous learning and adaptation are key to successful project management in today's business environment.
Well said, Shalin. So that wraps us up our discussion on project management methodologies. So we hope our audience found this information valuable and insightful.
Yeah, and thank you for tuning in to our Tech Somewhat channel. If you enjoyed this discussion, please don't forget to subscribe and join us for more engaging technical discussion or conversation in the future.
So until next time, keep innovating, keep learning, and we'll see you soon. Till then, goodbye. And take care.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.